and we want to make the most of this time, this opportunity. Welcome, everyone. You've joined us on the very first day of February 2023. Innovate BC. I think we're in, you can tell by my excitement, we are in for a treat today. I'm super excited to have our guest speaker. But before we introduce her and, pass this mic off to her, let's just take a moment. Let's just press pause. Maybe closing the eyes and just take a moment to acknowledge the gift of this moment, the gift that's been given to us in this day. And we say, hi to Creator. We give thanks, gratitude. You always have it close by. Anytime you feel like you need, an extra oomph, you need that extra push in your day, tap into your gratitude, tap into those things that you are grateful for and that you're thankful for. And that usually is a great, morale mood booster. So always giving thanks to Creator for the gift of being in this beautiful world, surrounded by all of our relations. There's us two-leggeds, there is the animals, the plants, and of course, those sacred waters. And without this world, we wouldn't be doing well. So we're part of this amazing masterpiece. So we give thanks to Creator. So I know there's a lot of content that's happening in today's webinar, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking. So I want to welcome you. I want to say that you are here on purpose. Grab your pen and paper. I know you will want to take some notes. It's going to be a great session. I believe there may be time for questions or comments or a little bit of sharing. We'll see, because I know there's a lot of content and we want to make the most of this space. So you're joining the Coaching Towards Cultivating Safe Spaces. So we have speaker Robyn Ward joining us, who is a certified executive coach, certified Cultivating Safe Spaces Facilitator, volunteer counselor, creative artist, activist, and change maker. She has mixed European heritage, Ukrainian, English, German, and is a proud mother of 2 Indigenous boys. Her life and her family's life is rooted in the Anishinaabe 7 sacred teachings: respect, courage, wisdom, humility, truth, honesty, and love. That's what it's all about. These values guide her daily and hold her personally and professionally accountable throughout her life. So for 20 years, she has focused on her professional development in 4 fields: psychology, business, coaching, and technology. And when she's not supporting clients or facilitating workshops, Robyn is a board member and a consultant at Animikii. Did I say that right?
Yep, Animikii.
Awesome. See, she's an ally and social justice disruptor to all spaces lacking inclusion and human rights. You go, girl. Her focus is healing, connecting, nurturing, and supporting healthy relationships internally and externally. So she's going to walk us through, she's going to teach us, she's going to drop some really good knowledge. There's Elaine Alec's guide called Cultivating Safe Spaces. So she's going to discuss activities, frameworks, and skills that support the practices of understanding yourself, responding with love-based practices, and having the patience and discipline to unlearn common approaches to the way we generate unhealthy and unsafe spaces. So she's bringing her wisdom, as she's also going to bring that knowledge, that wisdom from Gabor Máte, Brene Brown, all of whom I love. And so we are so honored that you're here. Welcome. I'm ready to learn, and I hope the rest of you are as well. Our hearts are open, as well as our minds and our spirits. So welcome, Robyn. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen. And I've just started an Anishinaabe language class with my family, so I'm going to start with that. Some Buzu, Mino Gijigad, Robyn Dishnikas, Treaty 1 Territory, Winnipeg, Indunjaba, Lakwangan Aki, Ida Bisho, Indo Dodam Makwa Dodam. Good day, my friends, elders, family leaders, young people, Two-Spirit, and non-binary folks. My name is Robyn Ward. I am My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a cisgender mom, sister, auntie, cousin, and I am so excited to be here with you today. Thanks so much for joining this talk about coaching towards cultivating safe spaces. Before I start, I want to admit with humility that I am still learning and that I'm not going to be able to discuss all of the elements and the ideas fully. I'm going to do my best to honor the work and the people that have gifted me with the knowledge that I have. However, if anything seems tricky at any moment in time, doesn't sit right, or you feel you can enlighten me in spaces, please reach out at any time so that, that we can learn together. I'll leave my contact information at the end, as well as I'm going to be posting a lot of links to things as well in the chat at the end. So of course, we like to start with a territory acknowledgement. I am calling in from beautiful Lekwungen speaking people's territory, also known as the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. Lekwungen means place to smoke herring and was traditionally made up of 7 major family groups and occupied 14 villages in what is now colonially known as Victoria, BC, and I want to acknowledge with gratitude and respect the traditional keepers of these lands who for millennia have passed on their culture, history, traditions from one generation to the next and continue to share their wisdom and their guidance as protectors and stewards and custodians of the land today. I like to participate in territory acknowledgements as a reminder of my personal commitment to the learning, the true history, the language, the protocols, and my commitment to honoring the relationships of the keepers of these lands and holding myself accountable to that reciprocal relationship within community. And, I'm just going to talk about the agenda really quick. So we're going to talk about cultivating safe spaces. And then we're going to break it down into the smaller elements of the cultivating safe spaces. So understanding self, love-based practice, patience, discipline, and then hopefully we'll have questions at the end. I'm going to weave a lot of coaching tools or healing tools or practices that I've learned along the way that increase health and wellness, in addition to the cultivating safe spaces framework, which is phenomenal. Cultivating Safe Spaces is a nested system framework that was developed by Elaine Alec. It involves 4 protocols, 4 conditions, and 4 perspectives for cultivating safe spaces. We'll likely only have time to do the 4 protocols. And so I want to support the material by discussing some additional wisdom and frameworks by Brene Brown and Gabor Máte. But lastly, we'll end with hopefully some discussion or questions, and I'll again share resources along the way. Now, what we know about learning in the brain is that we need to be in a good space. We need to feel comfortable and ready to learn. So I'm going to teach you one of my favorite breathing techniques before we get started. This is called box breathing. So it is a type of breathing that's taught to Navy SEALs, who are sometimes the most highly trained in the Army to go in. It combines the practice of optimal breathing with parasympathetic activation and concentration and mindfulness training. So you breathe into a count of 4, and I'll move my hand like this. So you're drawing a box, breathing into a count of 4, holding for a count of 4, breathing out to a count of 4, and holding for a count of 4. And we're going to do that 4 times because 4 is a great number, as we all know. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. In. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. In. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3. Hold. 2. Last time. In. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3. And hopefully after that experience, you feel a physical difference in your body, that you kind of feel yourself kind of centering and grounding into yourself, so that we can start this learning together. So first, I'm going to start with what is coaching, because sometimes people don't know what coaching is. So coaching is a set of core competencies of how you engage and support another human. And so there is ethical practice, which is holding information confidential, not sharing. If you tell me your story, it's not mine to share, it's your story. Having a coaching mindset, that's also a growth mindset. So this is the idea that we're not stuck in time without the ability to grow, that we are growing, changing, learning all of the time. And then coaching also involves an agreement. What are we working on together? What are the goals? And usually that's guided by the client or the individual that I'm serving. Cultivating trust and safety. Obviously, every great relationship has trust and safety, maintaining a presence. So I'm paying attention to the conversation. I'm not letting my mind waver. I'm not, leaving my phone on, all of those kinds of things. Listening actively, evoking awareness. So understanding that I can observe different things, I can hear different things in the conversation and circle back to them if it seems like there's more there. And then cultivating learning and growth within the relationship. So that's what coaching is. Super easy, right? And then next, we're going to talk about cultivating safe spaces and kind of how they work together. So cultivating safe spaces was developed by the marvelous Elaine Alec. I love her so much. She is Silk and Swakwima Nation. She is an author, political advisor, women's advocate, spiritual thought leader, teacher, and is the direct descendant of hereditary chiefs. So over decades, Elaine has been a leading expert in Indigenous communities for planning, health advocacy, all of these kinds of things. And she is the author of Calling My Spirit Back, a book that links an extremely personal examination of lived experience to a much broader overview of serious national sociological concerns, accompanied by tangible steps to approach them. So what I love is it's a hard read because Elaine has had a challenging life, and it ends with this hopeful model of this is how to cultivate safe spaces. So I received my certification for teaching Cultivating Safe Spaces, and I'm excited to talk about the framework with you today. Also, if you want to dive deeper into the training, Elaine has trainings as well, and I'll post a link to a free one that's coming up that she's going to be doing as well. She does Train the Trainer, which is what I went through, and I'll leave a link to her website as well. So honorable mention that this nested system is based on a traditional story of the 4 food chiefs. And I'll put a link in the chat at the end as well, the original story that started it all. The Cultivating Safe Spaces is a nested system. It's 4 circles similar to this one. And she's explained that nested systems operate under the knowledge that you don't have anything in this world without having a responsibility to it. So if something changes in one circle, it will affect all the other circles. So the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And every decision you make impacts everything else. It's all interconnected. So the individual, the family, the community, the nation, the land, the state of everything mirrors the state of everything else. So everything that I do as an individual impacts all layers of this system. And we could talk about this learning for days and more in-depth explanation, but because of the limited time, we're going to shift now to just talking about the Cultivating Safe Spaces framework. So I have spent the last 20 years researching human resiliency, love, connection, and healing, and I've collected knowledge and skills and tools along the way that I want to share with 100% love and a hopeful intention that this information might serve you in some way and deepen your understanding and connection with yourself and strengthen you on your path. So nothing I share with you today belongs to me. It's an accumulation of Elaine's knowledge that she's gathered over time and other wisdoms woven throughout. And she shares her wisdom so generously and open-heartedly. Her elders have told her that knowledge is no good if you don't share it. So through all of my searching, the most effective healing tool I have ever come across is Cultivating Safe Spaces. This model can be used for families, teams, communities, organizations. And this is what the model looks like. And governments, planners, students, frontline workers, businesses. This is knowledge that Elaine shares, bringing all of her teachings together in the hopes that everyone can see themselves using this framework. So today we're going to talk about the 4 conditions right in the center. The first circle we're going to talk about is understanding self. The truth is that we can't cultivate safe spaces unless you are one. The way in which we show up always impacts other people. And one of my favorite lessons that Elaine shared with us is that traditionally when the youth would in the community would go to the elders and ask for advice, the elders would respond, you know the answer, go to the water and wait for it. And this is the teaching that each person has to have faith in themselves, that no one can give you the answers that you seek, but you know the way in your heart, and only you have the knowledge, the power, and the wisdom to know your heart and know yourself enough to lead you to your next right steps. There's additional teachings in this as well in terms of being near water, and water being a source of healing, a source of strength, and bringing you out of any trauma brain, right? Being near water gives us a sense of peace and can make it so that our ears can listen a little bit a little bit better to what those answers are. Another teaching is that the quality of your life depends on the quality of the questions you ask yourself. I'm going to say that again. The quality of your life depends on the quality of the questions that you ask yourself. And that's what coaching is. Coaching is just questions. And so Elaine begins her circle with the questions, who am I and who do I belong to? And I encourage you to write those down and think about them. Who do I belong to? And of course, I don't mean that in a possessive kind of sense. When we say, who do we belong to? We're thinking about, who are we accountable to? Whose opinions matter most to us? Who encourages us? Who are our role models? I know, for example, my kids are a huge part of who I belong to, because I think of that 7 generations thinking and my accountability to them and future generations. And then what is on my heart is that acknowledgement that our feelings matter, that we're feeling beings. And so we need to know what's on our heart. We need to be connected to that in all of the work that we do. So one of the secrets of cultivating safe spaces starts with knowing and understanding yourself through asking these quality questions. This work goes to the place of understanding that we all have the answers within us. And last year at the Moose Hide campaign, Elaine shared a really great another teaching that is the health of the people is a reflection of the health of the land, and the health of the land is a reflection of the health of the people. The health of the family, the health of the community, the health of the nation, all of those circles that we were just looking at, they're interrelated. And so all of that is a reflection of the health of that individual. So how do we help each other? How do we help other people? How do we help our family? How do we help Mother Earth? The center of the system is the individual. And we've stopped focusing on the center of the system, which is the individual. In order to create a safe space, like I said before, you need to be a safe space within that individual. So colonization happened. It happened to all of us. It happened to everyone. And colonized systems are based on fear and control. Colonization promotes sickness, death, exclusion, oppression, and shame. And colonized trauma informed facilitation leaves the responsibility on one person to take care of everyone. And it's that person's responsibility to take care of any triggers or conflict within the group. Decolonized systems are more holistic, matriarchal, egalitarian. They promote love-based systems, well-being, inclusion, freedom, and validation. So a decolonized, trauma-informed facilitation acknowledges that it is a communal responsibility for all of us to take care of each other. When we create safe spaces for people to share, they heal, because we cannot heal what we don't acknowledge. And it's not one person that can be responsible for absolutely everyone's healing. It's up to the individuals and the group as a whole to cultivate that safe space together. For people to feel safe, it's because the whole group has cultivated that safe space together. That as humans, we see each other in struggle, and it is our natural desire, our natural state to want to be there for another human being. As well, we need training and skills and resources to have difficult conversations from a place of love, to learn and unlearn colonization, to learn decolonized ways of doing things, and to cultivate safe spaces to support one another with growth, connection, love, kindness, and community. And a really easy question to ask around this cultivating safe spaces framework is, am I doing things from a place of love or a place of fear? And that can be absolutely everything. How you walk down the street, how you create an agenda, how you bring together an event, how you do artwork, how you spend time with your family. Are you organizing things? Are you coming at it from an intention of love or from a place of fear? So healing comes from that sense of understanding self, identity, and belonging. Again, that piece of who are you and who do you belong to? Everyone here has a purpose. Everyone here has already everything that they need. All their answers that they need, they have already. So Gabor Máte discussed this question recently in the interview, the question of like, am I enough? Or that feeling of unworthiness. In the interview, he said, it's a trauma-based question. Elephants don't ask themselves, am I enough? Am I worthy? Ants don't ask themselves, am I enough? Am I worthy? Puppies don't ask themselves, am I enough? Am I worthy? A sunset doesn't ask itself, am I enough? Am I worthy? That very question comes from a place of insecurity and from trauma. So the question is not, am I enough? But even who is asking if I'm worthy enough? One of the impacts of trauma is that the value or the validity of one's own existence becomes a question. That perception that trauma comes from, that trauma comes from a toxic culture that tells people that we're only worth as much as we do or acquire or possess. That toxicity is not the individual. A baby isn't born thinking with those thoughts that I'm not enough. At some point, there is a message that gets through about their worth. And the message that they are only as good as what they can perform or how they look or what they accumulate. So where did that message come from? It doesn't come from within the human soul. It comes from a toxic culture that defines the value of human beings by their utility or their looks. So it's knowing and understanding yourself and your worth, and that you are already enough. You are already born with everything that you need to be enough. In the same way that the elephant, the puppy, the tree, and the sunset are enough. The next circle is the love-based practice. This is, of course, one of my favorites. And Elaine recommends in your work, decolonizing is putting love back into communities, back onto teams. Love-based practices decolonize the work. Again, is the agenda made with love? Is the project worked on with love? How do you celebrate and acknowledge the work and the love for each other as a team? Are you acting from a place of love or fear? How do you put love into every step of the journey? Colonial systems are based on that fear and control. So if you're looking at policies, processes, legislation, agendas, those are all coming from a place of control. We're afraid that if we lose control of the people we've gathered, something might come up that we won't know how to answer. Conflict might arise. We might lose control. Colonialism is based on that fear and control, whereas decolonization, this tool applies to everything in life. That when we make decisions, for example, for my kids, I'm coming at it from a place of love and trust and faith. Or I could be reacting to the reality of my own childhood and not theirs, right? So it's that constant question of what is the intentionality behind that? What am I coming at it from? So to slow down and think and build from a place of love, not fear. A great example of that, and I know I've been a mama bear, or what I like to call a hover mama, is sometimes I have restricted my children's social activities and things like that as a result of maybe the childhood that I had, right? And I'm not responding to their childhood at all. I'm responding to my childhood. So knowing and understanding, and Gabor Máte says too, it's not about blame. We're not trying to point a finger here. We're trying that understanding is everything. Understanding and knowing gives you the power and the information that you need to make better decisions for yourself, to be empowered within those decisions that you make for yourself, is knowing and understanding where they come from. The next one is patience. So patience is taking the time to understand others, taking the time to incorporate different ways of thinking and being into the work that you're doing, and not just working from my own understanding, but a collective understanding. So having patience for people and where they're at in their journey. Everyone has different levels, different experiences, different wisdom. And when it comes to their own personal journey, they'll have different things to add to the work. What impacts me, or what triggers me, what annoys me, how I show up in spaces, how I'm reacting to other things. These things help you be aware of and understand who you are and how you show up to the space. So how you can be present with other people. So Gabor Máte talks a little bit about this too. He says, when you're angry at someone and they trigger you, you can be like, oh, that person triggered me. Or you can get curious about the fact that you might have an explosive material within you. And where did that come from? And what does that need in terms of nurturing and love and healing, right? The next circle is discipline. So this one is one of the most important pieces. They're all important, but this is one of the ones that's most challenging. This is listening in a different way. You're listening for greater understanding or a deeper meaning. So we have one mouth and two ears. We're designed for the ability to listen to one another. Discipline is like meditating. It's hard to focus on just one thing and have that quiet mind. I know I've heard it referred to as the monkey mind, where it's kind of like tapping you on the shoulder and like, pay attention to something else and bringing that back into awareness. Elder Jerry Ullman, who does Teachings in the Air podcast, says that listening to someone is the best way to show respect to them. So if you're listening without trying to figure out what the person is saying is good or bad, you're listening without deciding if it's right or wrong. You're listening without thinking, what's my response to this going to be? And what am I going to say? You're not listening to heal somebody else. You're not listening to fix someone. You are just listening as information. And you're able to listen to a person if they rub you the wrong way. Are you able to listen to someone if you feel as though they're being disrespectful or there's something up with that person? Are you able to still listen to what they're saying? Do you think you don't necessarily have to agree with the person in order to listen to them? So you're just hearing all of the views. Again, it's information, it's perspectives, and taking it all into your mind, taking it in to see other people's perspectives. The biggest discipline to practice is to listen well, and it's one of the best ways to show respect. Hurt people hurt people. I know we've probably all heard that, right? The anger and the pain that bubbles to the surface covers the deeper meaning that we need to be heard and address and make change. So when people don't feel listened to, they don't feel respected or loved, and discipline means disciplined listening. So the way people come into space has nothing to do with me, and I can recognize that and process accordingly. When we cultivate safe spaces for a mediation or a conflict resolution, for example, there's always a check-in and an introduction. They'll have protocols, for example, saying we're coming together to have some really important conversations. And in order to make really good decisions at the end of this, we have to all listen to each other. We all have to take in all of the information, even if we don't agree with it, even if we don't like it, that we're here to listen in a good way that promotes inclusion and validation, even for the people that I don't necessarily like or I don't necessarily agree with. I'm going to listen to the other people, and so that we collectively can make a better decision on how to work together and cultivate safe spaces together. So now we're going to take that information and we're going to try to also weave in, how do we understand ourselves? What are some tips and tools and tricks that we can use? So one of my first ones that I want to talk about is Brene Brown developed this model called Braving. It's the anatomy of braving trust. I'll share a video of her talking about it as well. But this is the idea that we brave every time we trust someone. It is courageous to trust other people, and it's even courageous to trust ourselves. So trust is built in very small moments, slowly over time. It doesn't happen all at once. When we trust, we're braving connection with someone. And this is the anatomy of what that looks like, and gives us some language to talk about when there's betrayals of trust or when the trust is being built and why it works well. So boundaries, setting boundaries is making clear what's okay and what is not okay and why. I'm clear about your boundaries and you hold them and respect them, and you're clear about my boundaries and you hold them and you respect them. Another way to talk about boundaries that I really like is preferences. I don't know why, but they feel a little bit lighter. It's okay to have preferences. You can have as many preferences as you like. Your preferences can change. This is something Gabor Máte talked about too, is that boundaries, sometimes they are situational, they're dynamic, they change, right? Sometimes I might feel like going out and having a night of fun outside. Sometimes I might feel like having a night in, and that's all situational of how I'm feeling and how I'm doing. Gabor Máte also shared that all anger is a response to a boundary being disrupted. So the difference between healthy anger and trauma anger is kind of a beast that's trapped in the basement that kind of erupts, So healthy anger might be, hey, you stepped on my foot, get off my foot. Trauma anger is a response to all the boundaries or all the trauma that's been collected or felt over time, channeled towards that situation that's going on. Reliability is the next one. So you do what you say you're going to do, and not once, but every time. And I do what I say I'm going to do, not once, but every time. At work, this means staying aware of your competencies and limitations so you don't overpromise and are able to deliver on commitments and balance competing priorities. Accountability is owning your mistakes and apologizing and making amends. When you make a mistake, you own it, you apologize for it, you make amends. When I make a mistake, I own it, apologize, and make amends as well. Vault is you don't share information or experiences that aren't yours to share. So I need to know that my confidences, when I tell you something, that you're not sharing them and sharing that information with other people. That should be confidential. And what I share with you, you hold in confidence, and what you share with me, I hold in confidence. In a relationship, there's an acknowledgement and a respect for other people's secrets and other people's confidences as well. So if you tell me what happened with Sally yesterday, that you shouldn't have told me what happened with Sally, that tells me whether or not you're a trustworthy person to hold that vault, right? So it's holding everyone's confidences, not just mine and yours. Integrity, I can trust you if you act from a place of integrity and you encourage me to do the same. So integrity is choosing courage over comfort, choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy, and practicing your values, not just professing them. And then we've got non-judgment. So you can ask for what you need, and I'm not going to judge it. And I can ask for what I need, and you're not going to judge it. That we can talk about how we feel without judgment. We can fall apart. We can ask for help. We can be in struggle without being judged by one another, because it's a human experience to struggle, and help is reciprocal. And this one was a little bit hard for me to grasp at first, because I like being of service to other people, but I am so judgmental about asking for help from myself. And so I have to remind myself sometimes, like, the gift that I feel when someone asks me for help and I get to show up for them, that's the gift that I'm giving other people when I ask for help. That gift of being there for each other is a reciprocal nature. It's a reciprocal relationship of being there for each other, and that both sides of it, the giving and the receiving, is a gift. Generosity is extending the most generous assumption around intentions, words, and actions. So our relationship is only trusting if you can assume the most generous thing about my words, intentions, and behaviors, and then check in with me if it's right. And if I make a mistake, you'll be generous with the assumptions about it, that, I don't mean to hurt you, for example. And then just check in and see what happens. So if I forget to send you a birthday gift on your birthday, the generous assumption is I might have a lot going on. So checking in with me and being like, are you okay? What's happening? Might be a good idea, right? The great thing about this framework is that it works on self-trust as well. So am I honoring my own boundaries? Am I being reliable to myself? If I promise myself I'm going to do something, am I being accountable? Am I holding my own vault and deciding that I'm only going to share my story with people who've earned the right to hear it? Am I having integrity with myself? Am I being non-judgmental about myself and whether or not I'm asking for help, or whether or not I can do absolutely everything? And just being generous with my assumptions about myself as well. Another truth that I really love that Brene Brown shared is that if you're not working on your trauma, you're working your trauma out on other people. I'm going to say that again, because it's so good. If you're not working on your trauma, you're working your trauma out on other people. So the whole idea that you can just ignore it and it will go away, that doesn't happen. It just kind of finds its way to seep its way into absolutely everything in all of your relationships. Next, we're going to talk about love-based practices. So I said this at the beginning, but we're not thinking machines that feel, we're feeling machines that think. We feel it first. We feel it in our gut, we feel it in our heart, and then we're like, what's going on, right? We feel it in our bodies first. So we are feeling beings first. And that's really important. And that's part of that, who do you belong to and what is on your heart piece of cultivating safe spaces, acknowledging we are feeling beings. I really love this framework that was developed by Tara Brach. This is it's a way to respond to when you're going into that trauma space, when you're feeling anger or stress, or those feelings are coming up for you. It's an acronym called RAIN, and it's the practice of radical compassion. So the acronym is easy to remember tool for mindfulness. And there are 4 steps. So first is recognize. How do you feel in that moment? What's going on for you? Have you felt this feeling before? Then acknowledge, observe what's going on, allow it. Don't try to fight it. Let it come, feel what's going on. Name those feelings, what they feel like. Where is it in your body? Is it in your throat? Is it in your heart? Is it in your stomach? Does it have a color? Would it have a shape if you gave it a shape? Like really investigate it, right? And when did you first have this feeling? What assumptions might be underlying this feeling? I saw a really great interview with Gabor Máte when he was talking with someone about him being triggered and being angry. He had arranged for a contractor to, the gentleman had arranged for a contractor to come and do some work while he was away, and he didn't do it. And so the first assumption is, oh, he doesn't care about me. He doesn't think I'm worthy to get the work done. Well, there's probably a million other reasons. Why do we always jump to the worst possible reason or the worst possible outcome, right? Like there could be other ones. And that's that piece of like checking in with people. Brene Brown does this a lot. She'll say, the story I'm telling myself is, so for example, in that situation, the story I'm telling myself is that you don't care about me and you don't respect me because that's why you didn't come. Now, he may have lost a loved one. He may have, there's all kinds of reasons he or she may have not been able to show up, right? And so we need to be having more conversations with each other about what's going on. And are the beliefs true? So can you know that it's true? Can you absolutely know that it's true? Katie Byron does a really good job of asking sort of these 4 questions of like, is it true? Can you absolutely know that it's true? How do you feel with the thought? Who would you be without the thought? And then can you turn it around? So I'll just for funsies, I'll play with it for a second just so you can see how it kind of works. So I can feel like, oh, I'm a bad partner because I didn't get the kitchen clean. Is that absolutely true? I can feel like it's true. Can I absolutely know that it's true? Not unless I ask my partner what they think, right? Who am I without the thought? Well, a lot better, a lot lighter. I'm not worried about doing the dishes, or I'll get to them when I need to get to them or whatever. And then can you turn it around and think the opposite? And this is the positive reframing, right? I'm a great partner, whether I clean the kitchen or not, right? And that is what I would tell my good friend. I would say, you're a great partner. And you can clean the kitchen or not clean the kitchen. That's not really what's going to make or break whether or not you're a great partner. And then nurturing, this is that love-based practice in cultivating safe spaces, right? How do you respond with love to the good and the bad, right? Like not beating yourself up, what is a love-based response to when you make a mistake is acknowledging it. I love Brene Brown talks a little bit about this too. She's like just saying the word pain out loud when you make a mistake, or sadness or anger, naming it kind of takes a little bit of the energy out of it. And then responding with love, like in a way that you would for someone that you love and care about, seeing them and struggle. It might be going for a walk, having a bath. It might be journaling to get it out. It might be screaming really loud. It might, whatever it is, to kind of respond with love and give yourself that validation for your experience and that compassion for your experience. What's the most loving way you can show care to yourself through this experience? This is really cool. So two sisters, the Nagoski sisters, wrote a book called Burnout. And really, they talk a lot about burnout being like completing the burnout cycle. And so we hold stress in our bodies and we can't get rid of it without kind of giving it movement. So it's kind of physically our body needs to move or have some kind of way to complete the stress cycle, which I really love. So these are the recommendations that they made in the book. So 3 minutes of movement, running, walking, flapping your arms around, doesn't matter, just any kind of movement, dancing, anything. Breathing, so you could do the box breathing or any other kind of breathing technique you like. Socializing, so just talking with someone, being around people that you feel connected to. And that's important because you can be in a room full of people and feel alone. So socializing is the actual feeling connected to other people. Laughing, there are tons of great comedians out there. I highly recommend Jim Gaffigan, Hannah Gadsby. I can't remember any of the others that I like, but there's lots of them out there. Crying, just letting it out, not fighting it. If you need to cry, it's like turn off your phone, take the time that you need, honor yourself in that way. Affection or any kind of creativity. And I love what they said about burnout as well, is the cure for burnout isn't self-care. So it's not massages, it's not a cup of tea. The cure for burnout is us all caring for each other, which brings us back to that cultivating safe spaces, right? And how we show up to each other, how we support one another, that it's not on one person to do all the healing, right? We're all there for each other in our healing journeys. So this is a really great video on Facebook of 7 natural ways of healing. This is Anishinaabe inspired. The University of Manitoba's elder in residence, Margaret Lavallee, shares 7 natural ways of healing on Unreserved. And so these are other ways of looking at it, right? Just having as many tools in your toolbox as possible is so helpful, because one day one thing might work for you and it might be perfect, it might work for a really long time, and then another time you get stuck and you need something new and you need something different. So just trying to offer as many of those as possible, and ones that have really helped me on my journey as well. Talking, laughing. So you can see some similarities between the knowledge around that burnout book and traditional knowledge that's been there for millennia, right? It's like we're all kind of talking about the same thing, but talking, laughing, crying, yawning, shaking, yelling, and sweating. So talking, if you have something inside of you that's important going on, to share it and release that tension in your mind and in your body. Laughter, it's really important to have laughter and fun in your life, to have play in a good way, in a natural way. It releases endorphins from your brain. Crying is very important to release tears that are inside of you. And there are studies that show that tears have 63 toxins in them. So if you don't cry, that stays in your body. Isn't that unbelievable? Our bodies are amazing, aren't they? Yawning is an indicator also that something's going on. So you're tired or you're lacking oxygen. It's a message your body's telling you that you need to get some rest. Shaking. So shaking is movement, right? It's moving your body and doing it in a good way. Dancing is a way to kind of get in touch with your body, for example. Yelling, this is sounding your voice. This isn't like yelling at another person. This is, you don't have to yell at someone, but to practice using your voice. So for example, in some Anishinaabe full moon ceremonies, women will sound their voice at the end of the ceremony. Sweating, the sweat lodge is very important for Indigenous people. Releasing, again, toxins from the body and also secreting endorphins as well. So I also wanted to share a really great quote by Joshua Whitehead. He's a Two-Spirit Indigenous author, and he said a quote in his book that really resonated with me. In the book Johnny Appleseed, he said, "I am my own best medicine." I'm going to say that again because I just love it so much. I am my own best medicine. If we trust that knowledge that we already have the answers, we just need to be still enough and quiet enough and calm enough and give space to hear it, that we have those answers. We're the experts of ourselves. We've been ourselves more than anyone else on the planet. We've had 100% success rate in being ourselves and knowing our history and our experiences and our skills. Like, we know us better than anyone else knows us, right? So I wanted to put together as well a framework of how do we have challenging conversations. How do we come up to, and I know we all kind of feel it, like it's a conversation that probably should happen. So this is also like, first of all, the decision whether or not, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. This is, first of all, going into this is the decision of should this conversation happen? And that's up to each individual. It may be a conversation that needs to happen or doesn't need to happen. And obviously I would advocate 100 million bazillion % for safety. So if safety is in jeopardy, please, again, knowing self, understanding self, and whether or not these conversations need to happen. But if you do feel like they need to happen, having a framework for like, how do we walk into these conversations? I saw Pixic perform at U of Vic last year, and it was phenomenal. They're two gorgeous Inuk sisters that throat sing a freestyle songs. So gorgeous. I felt like you could actually see the music as they were performing, like colors and dancing, and oh, it was so gorgeous. And they mentioned in their monologue that the healthy relationship that they have as sisters, working together as family members, is a healthy model of rupture and repair. To have the courage and the discomfort of rupture and the consistency and the love of the repair that needs to happen. We're human. We're going to impact each other. We're going to make mistakes. The question is, how do we have conversations that move us closer together than further apart? So this is a combination of nonviolent communication, Indigenous restitution models, and counseling skills, kind of all in one. What we've learned from lateral violence is a powerful example of the harm that gossip can do, and that talking about someone behind their back can do a lot of damage. So people need to be talking to each other far more than they're talking about one another. So this is, how do we talk to each other? So first of all is permission, right? Hey, can I talk to you about what happened yesterday? It's kind of not sitting right with me. Intention. I'm hoping that we can kind of share a little bit about what happened with each other and get a better understanding of each other. And ultimately, my goal is that we can be closer by the end of it and knowing and understanding each other. Observation. So, what did you see? How did it feel? Feelings, naming those emotions. What do you need? What are you asking for? And then what is the request behind that need? And then ending with gratitude. So I'm gonna use the dishes example again. So, hey, can I talk to you about the fact that the dishes weren't done yesterday? Because I'm hoping we can come up with a strategy to work together as a family. And, I just want to talk about that a little more. The observation. I noticed that you said that you were going to do the dishes, but then by the end of the night, the dishes weren't done. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling at max capacity. I'm feeling drained. I'm feeling hopeless. I need to have a way that we can work together, and that the cleaning isn't falling all on me, for example. And so the request is, how can we work this out so that we can count on each other to kind of pull weight equally, or devise a system where we're both chipping in. And then gratitude. Hey, thanks for taking the time to connect with me and hear that. And I know it's not easy to kind of go into those uncomfortable spaces of rupture and repair. But ultimately, the hope is, as a goal, we get to know each other better as humans as a result, right? So, yeah. Now I put patience and discipline together because I know we have very limited time. We only 12 minutes left. I'm going to have to try to talk much faster. So patience and discipline I put together because I wanted to talk about grit. So Angela Duckworth did a lot of research around grit and resilience. And she found that grit is a combination of passion and perseverance for a singularly important goal, is the hallmark of high achievers. So she studied, high performers in terms of artists and athletes and all of those kinds of things. And she found scientific evidence that grit can grow. So the first element is having a growth mindset. That's believing that growth is possible and not having a fixed mindset. The example that I like to give around this one, because I've heard it a lot, is, oh, I'm not artistic. That's a fixed mindset. A growth mindset is, I haven't done much art, but if I wanted to take a class on pottery or painting or whatever, I would learn, right? It's an openness. I don't know how to fly a plane, but maybe someday I might learn how to fly a plane. And also the idea that every mistake is an opportunity to learn, right? That is the gift, is to acknowledge the growth and the learning that happens. That's how you can make this mistake worthwhile. You can give it value by learning from it. So sometimes things are hard, and I can do hard things. It takes bravery to do something courageous and new. I saw a TikTok that said plan for a 20% failure throughout the year. And then when you make a mistake, you just put it in the expected 20% file, which I really loved. That's awesome. It takes a little bit of that pressure off, right? Interest. And then she identified, so growth mindset, and then these 4 components of interest, practice, purpose, and hope. So interest, are you interested in what you're doing? Human beings can be motivated by many things, but the most enduring of the motives is tied to our interests and our values. How do you express your values? How do you acknowledge your values? How do you celebrate your values? Practice, this is over and over and over and over again, doing the same thing. Effort times talent equals skills. Skills times talent, skills times effort equals achievement. So part of the practice is honing your craft is being open to feedback, which is very vulnerable and can be challenging, but getting feedback from those who came before you, right? So role models or other performers, other athletes, other people doing what it is that you want to be doing, and learning from each other. Purpose, the desire to aid in the well-being of others, is likely to sustain your interest and make you greedier. In our best state, we authentically care about one another. If we are healthy and we are well and we are not in a trauma space, we want to be there for each other. And we see this a lot in children, right? They have this natural state of generosity and forgiveness and kindness that I aspire to every day. They have so much knowledge and wisdom around how to be in that authentic human state of kindness. Hope, grit depends on a different kind of hope. It rests on the expectation that our efforts can improve the future. So we can work to, we have to believe that it's possible, we have to believe that. And it's so funny, Mary Lambert says, love yourself the way your mom loved your baby feet. And I love that. Like, who doesn't love baby feet? Maybe I'm just a little too baby crazy, but also we see this infinite potential in babies, right? We hold them and we're like, you're perfect and you're wonderful. And we don't lose that, but we lose the connection with it. And so reconnecting with that limitless potential, that limitless possibility that we have within ourselves to be whatever we want to be. We're still those babies. We're just a little bit bigger. I want to talk about this one really quickly. So this is sort of what we just talked about, but working towards that preferred future is having conversations around what is it that you want in your life? What is it that you desire? So we can spend a lot of time in troubled past. We can spend a lot of time in resourceful past, but unfortunately, we can't really do anything about those areas, right? Other than taking the information from them to inform what we want in our future. So we know what didn't work. We have a very clear idea of what didn't work, but what is that future that you want? And what is that future that you want to be working towards? This I really just love. So the medicine wheel as a way of understanding self. I'll share a link to this. Strawberry Consulting gave us a little self-care checklist for the holidays, which was really nice of them. But even coming up with like a health plan around the medicine wheel, how do you practice your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, and your emotional health? So some ideas around that, around mental health can be grounding techniques, meditation, learning something new, honoring or celebrating your strengths, managing thoughts in that positive reframe, goal setting, reading a book that interests you, listening to a great podcast, playing a game, making something artistic. Cultural is obviously ceremony, connecting with culture, the land, the earth, with family, with community, journaling, quiet contemplation, being near water. Oh, water is so wonderful. Water is amazing. Physical would be, breathing exercises, moving your body, like we talked about, dancing, hiking, checking in on sleep and food, body scan of how you're feeling, cleaning or organizing your home. A lot of the times your outside world is a bit of a reflection of your inside world. So you can organize your outside world and feel a little bit calmer on the inside as well. And emotional, learning to identify and name emotions. Actually, I should share a wheel where it talks about naming emotions, visualizing life goals, celebrating positive relationships, just asking yourself, what can I do for myself today? I ask my partner oftentimes, I'm like, how can I increase your happy today? But I never ask myself that question. So obviously I'm still working on that understanding self piece, but yeah, just a little question like that. What can I do to increase my happy today? You know what? I think it might be having a Coke Zero because I really love Coke Zero. So I'm going to do that. And going for a walk with my dog. So that's my homework. I wanted to just share a couple of really quick quotes before we go. I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. Dr. Maya Angelou, love her. Every relationship is connected to your healing. That's a big one. Daniel Máte is Gabor Máte's son. He also said, don't compare yourself to anyone. Don't even compare yourself to yourself, which I totally love. And he also said 80% of what you feel in a relationship is not happening between you and the other person. It's happening within you, which is very powerful. And lastly, he said, assume that everyone is coming to a relationship with 100%. It's just their 100% might look different than your 100%. And you can accommodate or make changes accordingly, but assume that that is their 100% that they're willing to give, right? This is not changing the state of people, but accepting where they're at and what they're giving. Courage is a habit, a virtue. You get it by courageous acts. You learn to swim by swimming. You learn to courage by couraging. And one of my also favorite quotes by the fabulous Richard Waugabys, which is, I'm here to be an oddball, eccentric, different, wildly imaginative, creative, daring, curious, inventive, and even a tad strange sometimes. And that is the end of the talk. I'm sorry we don't have much time for conversations, but I will stick around if people want to ask questions. Please also, I'll put my link to my website if you ever want to just chat. There's a way to book time with me at the bottom of my bottom of the page, and it's been such a joy. I hope you got some value out of our time today, and I send you lots of love and care.
Thank you, Robyn. I feel the love. It's so great to have these messages that, kind of know and tuck them away. And this has been a really bright place in some challenging work, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Robyn. I feel speechless because you gave us so, I'm like, where do I even begin? And it's like, I want it all that you were talking about. I'm like, I want it all. So thank you for the inspiration and the passion, but also the knowledge that you dropped. Like all of these pieces are just helping us, inspiring us, challenging us to walk in that good, sacred way that we were meant to walk all along. Okay, so I'll stop because I could be talking forever. Any questions before we go? Any comments? Like this was rich, a rich, 50 minutes. Yes, come on in, Jen.
Robyn, this was phenomenal. I'm sitting with multiple emotions, disappointment that colonization took away my opportunity to learn this in a good way, and that at 44, it's where I'm starting. So gratitude to you for bringing this into the circle. And also this should be in curriculum everywhere. Everyone needs this. This is where we should be guided. So thank you for the work that you do, and for, I think, Innovate BC for making sure that this is happening.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that and bringing that into the space. And I've actually been thinking recently of how do I create a digital book or a curriculum, and decolonizing the way in which that is offered. So asking if people would pay for it at the end, what they feel is fair, but opening it up, because I feel like a lot of the things that should be readily available to everyone who needs it, there's a paywall and there are barriers that block the ability to access that information. And I want to bring it from behind the paywall and behind the work, right? Like it doesn't have to be that you have to buy 50 books in order to figure this out, that it should be a really good, not comfortable, but loving process. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love how you how you tied love into everything. And that's what it is, right? That's the teaching right there. That's one of the first teachings we're given. All right, so she gave a whole bunch of, if you look in the chat box, just I would recommend copying and pasting that whole piece. Thank you for everything. I believe this PowerPoint is going to be sent to all of you at the end of today's session. So you'll have a copy of that. Robyn, continue to do the good work that you're doing. Your light, your message is absolutely desperately needed in our communities and our home fires and our organizations, right? That personal development is so key to the health and wellness of, our people and our communities and this nation. So foundational stuff, really amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me a space to have this opportunity and for recording it so that hopefully it can also reach other people. And yeah, there's a lot of healing that needs to happen, but I believe that it's possible. And with all the love that I've seen, I know that we're headed in the right direction, Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm with you, sister. Okay. Be well. Thank you, everybody. And continue to just let your light shine. Peace.